Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So today, the FOMC raised their target interest rate by another 25 basis points. I think it's now a range of 5.25 to 5%. And there's some discussion about if this is the terminal rate. I'm waiting for Peter Schitt to come on to give his commentary. I love hearing his side of the story, and so I hope I get to watch it live. These last couple of times, I've had stuff to do during the time that he was on live, and so very frustrating. I really love the way Peter Schitt breaks down what's going on in the economy and in general in current events. Peter Schitt had a lot to say when we introduced the Juneteenth holiday. He had a lot to say about Black Lives Matter. He had a lot to say about various political January 6th. And I just can't wait to see what Peter Schitt has to say this time around, because the FOMC is talking about a terminal interest rate and the threat of recession. I got to point something out. I was just at, here in the Phoenix area, we have two large organic kind of grocery stores. We have Whole Foods, obviously, which is now owned by Amazon, and we have a Sprouts Farmers Market. So both of them have a cafeteria. I like to hang out there because, as I alluded to in recent videos, I'm looking for a non-romantic life partner. And one of the things that's going to be an important qualifier is I want somebody who has a healthy lifestyle, right? That's one qualifier. And by going to Whole Foods, going to Sprouts Farmer Markets, I filtered that part of the equation out already, right? Or so I think, because I go to the cafeteria at these two places, and these people, even though they might be choosing healthier foods, they're still stuffing their faces like there's no tomorrow. And I'm thinking to myself, you call that a recession? I mean, most people in just about any other country besides the United States would love to have the privilege to do that. And we're doing it on one hand, and on the other, we're calling it a recession. And until people can learn to eat properly, I have a hard time believing we're in a recession, right? Only in a world of abundance can we afford to use our food like it's a form of entertainment, right? Imagine we used other things like it's entertainment, right? Like, a lot of people are complaining about gas prices. Most people don't have the luxury of going for a fun drive anymore, right? And we treat driving like it's a necessary evil, right? And That's how food should be, right? Think about it. Food takes away time that you could be using to come up with innovation, right? To even to dig the ground to look for bismuth or gold, right? And Until we can actually eat because we need to eat, I have a hard time believing we're in a recession. Now, the problem is that you go up to any American and talk about this, they will scream at you. Do you realize how privileged you are? A lot of Americans are worried about their children. Their children are dealing with violence at their schools. Tell me how food solves any of that. If you can stuff your face, and all of a sudden your child has a good school to go to, and all of a sudden you're not in a or so-called food desert anymore, all of a sudden you're not at risk of being laid off from your job. If food really did solve those problems, then yeah, eat yourself into an oblivion. Now, there's another problem I ran into. I go to a board game meetup several times a week, and one of my a friend of mine there, one day it was just the two of us, and he asked if it was okay if he injected. He takes insulin. He has type 1 diabetes. And when he told me that, I said, I'm no stranger to chronic health issues. And I asked him if he could give me a tip. And he asked me about what. And I said, well, when you're amongst your friends and you need to refuse various foods, what do you do? I asked them for any tips about that so that you don't get, how do you get accepted for eating the way that you need to? And told me with a straight face, he told me, oh, he doesn't have to restrict what he eats. He just needs to measure his insulin doses. And I said, well, I told him, well, that's cool. But in the back of my mind, my heart sinks because that's how we're treating our bodies like a dump. As long as you can titrate whatever stuff your face, and then, oh, when there's a problem, take all these medications. That's how we treat our bodies. Now, don't get me wrong. If you insist on treating your body like that, be my guest. The problem is that we have a societal substrate that almost requires you to do that. It's like a form of predatory inclusion is how I like to put it, right? You have to poison yourself in order to play our game, right? We have a societal substrate that looks like that, right? That's the problem I have with that kind of setup. So my heart kind of sank when that was his answer to me about that. See, I wish instead of stuffing our faces, we could do other creative stuff, right? So right now, my new favorite metal to make art out of is zinc. So this is made out of zinc, believe it or not. The only problem is I haven't figured out how to anodize this stuff. I've been reading a lot about the chemistry of zinc, and apparently you need phosphoric acid, and you need an alternating current and all that. I'll give it a try at some point. But I love the way it turns out. The only problem is you can only pour it into graphite. It doesn't go into silicone. I'm going to be looking into getting a 3D printer that can print these the graphite molds, and so I can print other designs. The only problem with graphite, obviously, is that it's very rigid, right? So your design basically has to completely pull out in one direction, right? It can't require the mold to flop, right? But the nice thing is that I have basically an unlimited supply of this stuff, right? So I got all of these red melting down pennies. Now I'm so glad years ago when you could still find copper pennies, I'm so glad I put a lot of them aside because earlier today I got 10 rolls of pennies and I pulled out less than a roll of copper from it. It's kind of annoying because it's not a whole lot of copper, but you still have to do it before you can melt down the rest of the zinc, right? The copper is not going to melt at the temperatures we're talking about, right? And as I was going through the roll, the pennies come from all sorts of years, right? The 1980s, the 1990s, the 2000s, and it brought back a lot of memories to see those years. My mom used to work at a Hills department store. The Hills department store has since closed down. And it brought back a lot of memories to see pennies from the 1990s when my mom was working there. And you can see there's a lot of stuff outside of food. Stop stuffing your face. Now, here's the thing. If you want to stuff your face, be my guest, really. But the problem is that we have a societal substrate that almost requires people to do that in order to belong. That's where I have a problem. So stop calling it a recession either. We haven't seen a true recession for God knows how long, right? If you have the privilege of stuffing your face, you are probably better off than 90% of the world population right there, right? Yes, you may have to give up various things. And I hear people talk about how they have childcare issues. They have can't put gasoline in their car. They're worried about their car being repossessed. Yeah, how about you eat less so you can take care of that? Right? Eating more doesn't solve. Actually, eating less might solve some of the problems. Eating more guarantees you will not solve any of those problems, right? That's the funniest part of it all, right? Anyways, I got a few comments here. How you almost blew up the airport. It was the airport that I almost blew up, not an airplane. What had happened was I had flown to Munich, Germany, to take a connecting flight from Munich to Warsaw, and I wanted so badly to charge my laptop because while I was on the flight, I was waiting for a very important email. I got to Munich, and to my dismay, I discovered that the outlets don't look like anything they in the United States. And so I had a bar of chocolate, and it probably wasn't this brand because it had aluminum foil in it. and I thought I could jam the aluminum foil into the outlets and connect it to my plug on my laptop, and it worked. And I got to check my email, but in the excitement of doing that, after I finished checking the email, in the excitement, I was about to unplug it when I accidentally crossed the wires. It made a huge spark, and it caused all the lights in that room to turn off. And everybody gave me a dirty look. But oh well. All right. So enjoy the recession. Enjoy cleaning up your lifestyle, if you will. And when you made an explosion with waters and chemicals, it had to turn off. Yep, yep. What had happened was I had learned some chemistry, and I had learned how to make this explosive chemical called sodium chlorate with the electrolysis of salt water. And so, but it was a very slow process. I had to run the electrolysis for like 2 weeks just to get a handful of this stuff. And then I would go to the fireplace and blow up like a book or something like that. And it was slow. I would take a phone book, stuff it with sodium chlorate, and burn it. And I wanted to make it a little bit faster, so I went out to our backyard. I plugged a extension cord into the wall, and I threw the end of the extension cord into a bucket of salt water. And before I even got a chance to think about what I was doing, the reaction went out of control. And one of the byproducts of that electrolysis reaction is that it makes a lot of chlorine gas, or maybe it might have been chlorine oxides, or maybe hydrogen chloride. But it made the entire area of our backyard impossible to breathe. I couldn't reach the extension cord to unplug it. The reaction went out of control, and I went to the basement to turn off the circuit breaker. And by the time I came back, the reaction had went even more out of control. Wires had caught fire and all that. And my dad was so upset. He took away all the gear from my room, and I was reading his old college chemistry textbooks. This is where I got all the ideas from. He took them all back from me. And during COVID, I had to make my own bleach with it's a similar electrolytic process. You just don't let it run all the way to sodium chlorate, right? And it brought back fond memories of when I was doing that. Remember the guy watched you on the plane with him. I used to have a serious addiction to masturbating. Now, see, a lot of people think if you have an addiction to masturbating, you're doing it all the time. I really wasn't. The problem is that I would have a hard time, if I had a craving to do it, I had a hard time changing my mind. My addictions usually play out that way. I wasn't eating a lot. See, people hear eating addiction, they instinctively think you eat 10,000 calories a day. No, I was never eating that much. The problem is that if I wanted something, I would move heaven and earth just to get to it, even if I had to jeopardize my job, my relationship with family, my relationship with my girlfriends. I've jeopardized all of those to get to my favorite foods and to get to masturbating. So I had a huge addiction. And to give you an idea of how badly I would be at work and hide out in the bathroom to do it, or I would do it on an airplane. I thought everybody was asleep. I was on my way to Taiwan, and I thought everybody was asleep. I think I had an aisle seat, and I was doing my business, and the guy in the window seat just happened to need to get up to use the bathroom, and he saw what I was doing. And I had my laptop out. I had I believe it was Polish Idol winners Alicia Janazzi and Evelina Falenta are the top two winners of Polish Idol season 1. And he was actually more interested in what I was looking at than what I was doing. And he looked at the laptop screen and he shook his head. He was expecting to see some kind of porn. I actually like looking at girls with their clothes on. I know I'm crazy, but that's why I have a hard time with relationships. As soon as a girl takes their clothes off, it's the most disgusting thing in the world, for me at least. Anyways, stop eating so much. Stop, use your food appropriately, right? Treat it like putting gasoline in your car, right? I know that's going to be a hard ask because when I go to even the organic grocery stores and they have a cafeteria, That's probably one of the safest places to witness people using food appropriately, and they still don't, right? Now, in Taiwan, people spend 20%, 30% of their income on food, and they recognize what it is, right? It's a miracle that they have enough to eat, right? They don't abuse it, right? All right, we need an updated chart of what I need. Let's see. I eat one meal daily. Yeah, that's good. The point is that treat eating for what it is, right? Um, and so it's really unfortunate how people eat here in the United States. I don't think I have witnessed one person eating properly in many, 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 many years. Maybe not even in my lifetime. I want to say. I mean, it used to be even worse, right? And also, don't cast out people for what they eat or don't eat, right? I think that's a big one, right? Uh, I mean, I it, if you want to poison yourself, really be my guest. The problem is that we have created a societal substrate where it is very difficult to lead any sort of life eating the. See, I was just talking about my friend at the board game meetup who I just learned had type 1 diabetes. And even then, he deep down, he probably knows he shouldn't be eating a standard American diet, right? And unfortunately, we've created a societal substrate where that kind of lifestyle was, in a lot of ways, a very uphill battle, and it shouldn't have to be, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.